Hey guys, if you're listening to this, you obviously like podcasts. You probably like music too, I would imagine. On Spotify, you can listen to all of that in one place for free. You don't even need a premium account. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now. The good thing is, is on Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcast so you never miss an episode. You can download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, so you don't have to worry about it cutting in and out like I have to when I'm at work. And you can easily share what you're listening to with your friends via Spotify's integrations with social platforms like Instagram. Just search for the Really Rich Podcast on the Spotify app or browse podcasts in the Your Library tab. And follow me so you never miss an episode of the Really Rich Podcast. Last but not least, though, Spotify is the world's leading music streaming service. I don't know if you guys knew that. I did not, but it is. And now it can be your go-to for podcasts as well. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Adam Rich from the Really Rich Podcast. And you know, man, you know what's crazy to me? I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and especially with all the hysteria over like the shooters, and white supremacy, and just people like mass shoot. It's insane to me that in this world, in 2009, we got the internet. We are so globally connected, and the world has never been like this before. The world has never seen connection amongst nations and tribes and cultures the way it does right now. I mean, it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger because of the internet. But what's insane to me is before the internet was ever created, I want to say the first, it's been in the works for basically since Nikola Tesla, however you say his name, came up with the idea or the theory of a computing network back in the early 1900s. It was either the early 1900s or the 19th century, meaning 1800s, but I want to say it was the early 1900s. But regardless, the internet has never, before the internet was created, which wasn't really significantly online until like the early 90s, as far as globally, the world has always been about, different races being against each other, different nations being against each other, different cultures being against each other, different ideas being against each other. And the reason for that, if you think about this, if you follow throughout history, if you look at all the things that have happened in the past, the reason for it is because everything has always been based at the smallest level with family, then village, your neighbors being your closest people. Then it became like small towns, where you think about this, even in like the 1800s, 1900s, you'd hear about people being, almost everybody would know your name in a town, because you grew up there. You didn't really travel a whole, you couldn't really go too far. But, and then and then it gets bigger, then it becomes cities and then states and then cities, counties, states, then countries or whatever. And the reason why this is very significant is because in the past, you could not that it's justified. It was terribly wrong throughout all of history, but you can understand why people would choose their own color or whatever over another color. It seemed like they're not a part of your family. They're not a part of your village or whatever. So in the past, in the history, and I'm talking like 1,000 years ago, I'm talking way more than hundreds. I'm talking thousands of years ago. You had different countries, different nations, different kingdoms against different kingdoms. And the reason why this is important, especially in today's world, is because in the old days, when that's all you had was your nation, when you had to represent your country, like, you're talking Israel against the surrounding countries. You have different cultures, different it wasn't really even about religions, because religions hadn't even been developed really yet. But it was more about your nation, your allegiance to what kind of people you were. And people would war with each other all the time. Like, I don't know if anyone's seen, what was the movie called? Was it Troy? Yeah, Troy with, what's his face? Brad Pitt. And I don't even really want to get into movies or whatever. I'm talking pure history here. It is very common through all of time, and even still kind of to this day, for nation to be against nation. That, you know what I'm saying? Like, nations would want to take over other nations. Areas of people, a kingdom would want to take over another kingdom, basically to expand their own kingdom, to expand their land, to own more, to be the king of more people and more land and more resources and things like that, right? And this is common throughout all of history. This is very well known. I'm not saying anything controversial here. If you read history, you know these things. But here's where it gets fucking crazy. In today's world, we still preach about identities of cultures and nations and races and shit. Like, people talk about when the El Paso guy was a white supremacist and only killed Hispanics, or like he hated anybody that wasn't white, which I think anybody with half a fucking brain knows that regardless what color you are, if you're racist against anybody, any fucking race, it's just dumb. It's stupid. There is literally zero benefit physically, mentally, from a human standpoint. There's a reason it's called the human race. But then somewhere down the line, we decided that races involved people, like, of color. And I'm throwing in white people is a race, black people was a race, or it's a black race, Hispanics a race, Arabs a race, Asians a race, and here's what's dumb about that. I understand why people would I guess. You look at people that are different looking than you, and throughout the history, when you didn't have the internet, you didn't have intelligence, you didn't have wisdom, you didn't have knowledge, it's understandable why you would look at somebody that looked different than you and you would value them differently. It's understandable in the past. But in 2019, to look at a different colored person than yourself and think of them as more or less valuable just because of the color is pure ignorance. It's pure stupidity, and it's just not smart. I mean, there's nothing positive to say about it from an intelligence level. There is nothing, like, think about this, dude. There is nothing that a white person or a black person or an Asian person or a Latino person or whatever, Hispanic, an Arabic person, there's nothing that any one color person can do that another color can't. It's what can humans do? That is what the big deal, that's what it's always actually been about, but nobody's seen that in history. You didn't have the intelligence to know that. Think about through science. Through science, we've proven this. There is not, like, and if you give me an idea, a topic, an event, not a talent, but even a talent, anything, and then say anything that anybody's ever done. To say that only that color, whatever color it was, I don't care what the topic is, to say that only a certain color person can do a certain thing is just stupid. It's just dumb. People are human beings. There's a reason it's called the human race. Racism should not be about colors. It's fucking retarded. And I'm sorry to use that word. I don't mean it when it comes to, like, mentally challenged. I don't mean it like that. I just mean it's the harshest way I can call somebody stupid, and I don't mean it to be insulting towards anybody that knows anybody that's mentally challenged. I'm not making fun of mentally challenged people. I'm highly, highly against that. I've always been against that, even since I was a little fucking kid. I hated seeing other little kids shit on people because they had mental conditions. I fucking hate that. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I'm sorry to use that term. If it's offensive to anybody, I don't mean it, I promise. But that being said, it is beyond just idiotic to think to yourself that anybody, like, that a whole group of one color of people would do anything collectively. So I don't care if you say the crime rate is highest in the black community. That doesn't mean that the white community is is better, or that they're in any way more talent. Like, they're not oblivious to this, is I guess the best way I can put it. It's not like crime rate is only strictly a black thing. There's plenty of murderers and rapists and killers that are white, obviously, with you know about this with the mass shooters that just happened. But what's really dumb is that now you keep hearing the media is pushing this shit hard, that they're saying the white supremacy is a big problem in this country. And it's so fucking stupid. If you look at the sheer numbers of the amount of people that are white supremacists, or that are openly white supremacists, or that you find out are white supremacists or whatever, the amount of number of people that claim to be white supremacists compared to the amount of people that are actually in the country or even in the world that are of that same fucking color, it's so minuscule. It is so tiny. It's less than 1%. And anybody that knows anything about math, you have less than 1% of anything, you don't have much. You have a very, very fucking tiny amount. And I'm talking, it's less than a fraction of 1%. The amount of people that are actually white supremacists. Because here's the fun part. Here's the fun fact of the day. White supremacists don't hide that they're white supremacists. They are very vocal about being anti whatever color. It's weird how, because it's like they're wearing their stupidity as a badge, as like a badge of honor. I don't know anybody, and listen, if you're a closet white supremacist, you're a shitty white supremacist. Because what's the point of being any color supremacist if you don't want to admit it or talk about it to anybody? It'd be very weird, wouldn't it? It'd be pointless. Why would you be a white supremacist and then be very friendly with black people all the time? Or any color people that's not white? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? It's just stupid. So this kid this guy that did all this, the mass shootings, any fucking white supremacist that does mass shootings, I don't care if they've killed 4 people or 1,000 people. Instead of looking at it as a fucking color thing, we should be looking at it as it's a psychotic thing. Because a friend of mine put a poll up on Facebook trying to label it down to, is it a color thing? Is it a Republican Party thing? Is it white supremacy? Is it what area he grew up in? No, it's none of that shit. It's the guy is a fucking psycho. Bottom line, I mean, every single mass shooter in the history of ever was a psychopath. And if you look up mass shooters throughout time, the majority of them, I will say, are white. The majority of mass shooters are white, but there's tons of other color mass shooters. I mean, shit, how many I don't even want to put it down to a color, but how many Muslim terrorists has there been? And it's stupid to think that all Muslims are terrorists. It would be absolutely stupid to say that. And here's what's fucking wild to me. That in 2001, when we had 9/11 happened, I remember how unjustly and unfairly the mass of Arabs in the world were judged off of a few fucked up nut jobs that committed the 9/11 attacks. And not just the 9/11 ones, but all of like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, the Taliban, all these people that were Muslim, because I don't want to put it to it's not a color thing. I remember when a guy in Detroit at the airport, at the Detroit Metro Airport, a black guy from Nigeria was a Muslim, and he had a fucking shoe bomb. They actually busted him before he was able to detonate it. I guess he was trying to detonate it, or you can look at the story up. I might be like kind of messing it up a little bit, but the guy got caught on the plane, if I'm not mistaken. He got caught on the plane trying to detonate his fucking shoe. Well, this dude wasn't Arabic. He wasn't from an Arab country. But he was a Muslim. But I still think it's stupid to say that it was a Muslim issue. Now, are there a good amount of radical Muslims that are nutty, that think that you should go around killing people that aren't like you? Yeah, absolutely. But I would never say that it's the whole fucking culture, the whole religion. I know it's not. I have plenty of friends that are Muslim, and they're very nice, decent people. Now, maybe they're plotting to kill me behind my back, but I doubt it. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't even be joking like that. I'm just trying to be funny, but it is absurd to label any whole group by what one or a very small percentage of people have done. If I jumped into a car today and then blasted fucking 12 people, would you, A, say that it's all white people that are evil drivers? Would you say all white people shouldn't need to get, or shouldn't be allowed to have their license at all? Would you say that they're all fucking psychos, that they're all capable of doing this? Every human being is capable of doing something like this. But most of us don't. And it doesn't come down to your fucking color. It doesn't come down to what country you're from. It doesn't come down to what religion you are. It comes down to the fact that there are some fucking psychos out there. There is literally some nutty, mentally, like people with mental conditions. And I don't mean that like the mentally challenged, like that kind. I'm saying mental in the fact that maybe they're bipolar, maybe they're schizo, maybe they are slow, who knows what the fuck happened to them. Maybe they had drug addict parents. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're actually, if you did an IQ test, maybe they're fucking geniuses, but they're just evil. They have some shit wrong with them inside. And this happens, man. We gotta stop. In 2019, we're still talking about race being involved in any fucking thing. It's so fucking stupid. It honestly bothers. There's not a lot that pisses me off, but that's one of them. And I'm not talking about just for white people. I'm talking about every single fucking color there is across the spectrum, every religion there is, every nation there is. There are really good people and there are really fucking nutty psychopaths that are evil and want to commit horrible acts against human beings. Now, whatever the fuck their reason is, I don't give a shit if in the next week, 5 white supremacists come out and kill in 5 different cities and kill 1,000 people each. I would still say that those are 5 horrible, evil pieces of shit. That doesn't mean all white people are fucking psychos or all white people are murderers. If you look in Chicago right now, the black on black crime rate is through the fucking roof. Now, does that mean all black people are fucking murderers? No. Of course it doesn't. It means that one bad area that has these people have had probably shitty childhoods, probably shitty upbringing. Maybe they got into the wrong crowd. Maybe they had bad parenting. I don't know what the fuck it is. But what I do know is if you have it in you to take a life, one life or a million lives, if you have it in you to think that you should do something like that, you are fucked in the head. You're evil, you're psycho, something's wrong with your mentality, and you need help. It's the bottom line, dude. It has nothing to do with fucking race, it has nothing to do with religion, it has nothing to do with your nationality, what country you're from, what city you're from, what area you're from, what family you're from. None of it. None of that matters. What does matter is clearly you have the wrong shit going on in your head. And there could be a God knows how many a number of things that could cause that. There's so many fucking things that have to be wrong in your head to think that it's okay to be a mass shooter, to be a racist, to be a person against certain religions. Like if you're anti-Muslim, listen, I'm not a Muslim, but I don't care if you are. If you are, then fine. I'm not trying to make you not. I'm not trying to say you're wrong. I'm not, and the same goes for Jews, atheists. You be whatever the fuck you want. I don't personally follow that, but that doesn't matter. Live your life. Do what do what makes you happy as long as it doesn't come in the cost of somebody else. But I just don't get how in 2019 we can still rely on this, or we can still say these kinds of things in the media. How irresponsible and just fucking dumb is the media for trying to push this narrative of, oh, it's white people and white privilege and white this. It's like, why didn't I remember in 2000 after 9/11 when all the Muslims were getting labeled the same fucking way? How wrong it was. It was wrong to say that every Muslim is like this, is like those radical ones that did the 9/11 terrorist attacks. It's wrong to say, if a Muslim tomorrow come out and killed 1,000 people and said Allahu Akbar or whatever, and basically said, I'm a Muslim and this is what all Muslims should be like, and then he killed 1,000 people, I still wouldn't say that it's all Muslims, because it's fucking not. It's not all one people. It's not all one race. It's not all one nation. It's not all one culture. It's not all one religion. It's not. It never has been, and it never fucking will be. It's so stupid in today's world to be grouping people like that. And, the internet has made me do some really deep thinking about this, about where life is going in the future, and one day we're going to look back at things like this and we're going to laugh and be like, man, how stupid of a society were we to think this way? You know, it's like back when everyone in the world thought that the sun revolved around the earth, like the earth was the center of the universe. It's now looking back, it's like, man, how silly to think that. But back then, everybody thought it. Everyone thought that, you know, you go to the edge of the earth and it would just drop off, like it was a bunch of waterfalls everywhere, like you would just go right off the cliff. Like the earth was flat, and now, unfortunately, there's a group of people that think that, but it's not everyone. It's not every person. And it's just crazy. The internet is going to change stuff dramatically, and I can't wait for it because, dude, we got some shit to talk about right after this break. I got to talk about I got to do a little commercial action for the podcast, but right after the break, dude, we got some deep shit to get into when it comes to the internet and how it's going to change the future of the world. So please, you are not going to want to miss this. Trust me, this is some important shit that I guarantee you have not heard anywhere else. And you might think I'm crazy, but if you follow the patterns, you follow the math, and you just hear me out, I guarantee you, dude, this is exactly how the world is going to play out. Check this shit out, man. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? Well, the answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. When I started using Anchor to do my podcast, it was so extremely easy that I haven't even bothered to look for another app to use. I love this app. It's the only one I deal with, the only one I even recommend, period. I recommend you get on there ASAP. If you want to start a podcast, this is definitely the place to go. It's easy. You can drive around and record. You can sit in your basement and record. You can do it anywhere. It's fantastic. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start, anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. All right, now here's the thing. Like, now, you know, we're back. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, the fact that we talked about the racism and how stupid it is and everything like that, but it's even deeper than just like it's easy for me to come out here right now and say that racism's stupid. People can say that all day, and a lot of people, I don't know, some people may say that and maybe they're just saying it to sound good or sound cool or whatever, but literally, here's how dumb it is, and I'm going to get into this like in full depth. The fact that we're connected in the world the way that we've never been before. Like you can literally talk to people. I've done this on LinkedIn. You can talk to people in any fucking country in the world because of the internet, because of social media, because of just the connection across all platforms. And here's what's weird. Here's what's wild. And I know that most people, every time I say this to somebody, they never even think about this kind of shit. But think about this. Like, if you live in America, and I know not all of you listening may live in America, but we'll get to you, trust me, but just hear me out on this. If you live in America, you live in one country, America, and everybody you know, everybody you've ever met, everybody you've talked to, social media, all your friends, all that, is say they all live in America. Nobody lives outside of the country. Well, you're still going to have differences of opinions, differences of culture, differences of politics, and you're going to have that across the board no matter what country you're talking about. However, it's in our, I don't want to say it's in our genes, but it's a pattern throughout history that if you're from one nation and you're dealing with somebody from another nation, the thought is, you know, you're all for your country. Everyone is all for their country. It's called nationalism. It's not a horrible it's never really been considered a horrible thing, because if you're from a specific kingdom or from a specific nation, you're supposed to root for that nation. You're supposed to be all for it. You're supposed to be happy about it. You're supposed to be grateful that you're a part of it and all that. And I am. Don't get it twisted. I'm very grateful to be a part of the American country, especially in the world in this day and age. Now, I was born in America. I grew up in America. I've left on vacation, but I've never lived in any other country. I've always been American. And what's interesting to me about all that is that if you're from a specific country, throughout all of history, you're supposed to dramatically support that country. I mean, look at the Olympics. If you're from a specific country, even if you play as an athlete in a very specific sport where you're from a different country, but you now play in America because America pays the best or America has the best teams or whatever, when it comes time for the Olympics, it's highly encouraged that whatever country you were born in is the country you play for in the Olympics. And I want people to understand this. I want people to grasp this concept. When you play for a specific country in the Olympics, you're basically saying, I want my country to be better than yours. I want mine to win. I'm representing this country because I want this country to be considered the best. You know, like if my country does the best, we're the best and all that. And think about this. I've already talked about this, how the human race is the only real race. It's not black people. It's not white people. It's not Hispanic. It's not Arabic. It's not Asian. There is no race other than the human race. Colors are not a race. And think about it like dogs and cats and birds and shit like that. Like, you can have plenty of different types of dogs, but you're still a dog. And I see it the same exact way when it comes to human beings. You can be a different type of human being, black, white, Hispanic. You can be a different type of human being, but you're still a human being. You can be a different type of dog, you're still a dog. You're still a canine. And the reason why this is important is because when you realize that all dogs, for the most part, can breed together. Now, granted, I'm sure there's some difficulties between a Chihuahua trying to mount a Great Dane, but the point that I'm making is that a canine can mate with a canine. You know why? Because it's the same type of race of animal. It's a dog. And so it doesn't matter if you're a bulldog, a Shih Tzu, a Doberman. It doesn't matter what kind of dog you are. If you're a dog, you can mate with other dogs. You're just like other dogs. Do you look different? Are you a different size, a different shape, a different color? Yes. You're still a fucking dog. And you still breed with other dogs. You still mingle with other dogs. You still live the same life as other dogs. Like the same kind of upbringing. You're still immune to the same shit, and you're still allergic to the same shit. You're still, it's the real reason why I'm bringing that up. I know it may sound silly, but the real reason is because when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, being black or white or Hispanic or Asian or Arabic, any of that shit. All that matters, all that means is that you're a Chihuahua, a Doberman, a Bulldog, a Pit Bull. You're still a dog. You're still one group, one body of type of a person. Or being, I should say, because a dog is not a person. But it just blows my mind that we look at each other like just because you're a different color, you're supposed to be worse or better than me. And it's just not true. You're a human being and so am I. If you're capable of doing shit, so am I. Now, you might be better. Maybe you've practiced more. Maybe you didn't. But that doesn't matter. Certain dogs are better at jumping high. Certain dogs are better at running fast. Certain dogs are better at sniffing things. Certain dogs are better. It doesn't matter what it is that you're better or worse than. It doesn't make you a better overall species. We're all still human effing beings. So some may jump higher, some may smell better, some may taste better, some may see better. I mean, it doesn't matter. But in this world that we live in today, see, we've never lived in a society where the entire earth was connected. And now we do. And so that's going to dramatically change how everything plays out in the future. People might not see it today. A lot of people don't look at it. A lot of people don't see it, don't think about it. They think, oh, well, it's always going to be, if you're America, you should be all about America. And, you know, that's it. Don't worry about anybody else. But the reality is, the longer that we're globally connected, and this is true, think about this. Use logic here. The longer that we are globally connected, meaning every country in the world is connected and can talk to anybody at any time, the less different we become, and the more we become a race of humans, not a race of culture, a race of color, a race of religion. It truly will eventually, I honestly think within the next 10 to 20 years, the entire world will catch on to what I'm talking about right now. And they'll understand that if you're a human being, regardless of fucking color, regardless of shape, size, age, creed, whatever, religion, all that if you're a human being, you're capable of doing whatever. Anything. You know, you're capable of doing whatever it is that a human being can do. It doesn't matter what color you are. And so I think the longer we're connected, the longer that the globe is one unit, one village. You know, that's what the difference is. That's what I guess I'm really trying to get at. You know, when we were thousands of years ago, all you cared about was who was in your village, your immediate 10, 20, 30, 40 people in the whole tribe, the whole village. You knew everybody. You grew up with everybody. Everything that happened to anybody, everyone heard about it. Well, then it got bigger. Then the population got bigger, and then things got a little different. Then the world got bigger, but you couldn't travel. You couldn't communicate with them. So all you knew was whoever was around you. You know, who was ever immediately in your life. And that's the only people you cared about. That's the only people you fought for. That's the only people you thought about. And now we're living in a time where the world is connected, but what I've noticed is, especially here in America, and maybe it's not the same everywhere, but what I have noticed in America is that we're living in a time where the entire globe is connected. However, in America, we still want to separate people based on color, which is fucking stupid. The country doesn't want to do that. The government doesn't want to do that, but certain people do. Certain people want to say, oh, well, a white person committed mass, he was a mass shooter, so therefore white supremacy is real and white supremacy is a big issue and blah, 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 blah. Well, here's the reality. If say there's 5 people a year that are white supremacists, that are mass shooters, right? They kill 4 or more people. If there's 5 of them in America every year, that is such a small, tiny, minuscule, minute portion of society that it's almost not worth bringing up. Now, the reason it is worth bringing up is because they've affected the lives of those families. And it's a horrible tragedy that happened. But the reality is this: if you have 350 million people in America, and maybe it's more than that, maybe it's a hair under, but on average, you got 300 to 400 million people in the country at any given time, right? Now, say 5 of them are racists and killing people. Then that means you only have, out of 350 million, you got 5 evil fucks that deserve death. And they're stupid, by the way, for being racist. But do you understand, how, I don't even know how many millions of people there are in the country that's white. But if 5 of them, and first off, I don't know 5. I don't know that there's 5 of them. I'm saying, say there is 5. There might be only 2 or 3, right? Because the only 2 people I heard of that committed a mass shooting this year that were white, one of the 2 was a white supremacist. So now you're talking, it's in August. We're in August now. We're in the 8th month of the year, and 2 fucking people committed mass shootings, which is horrible. It's a horrible tragedy. I'm not trying to downplay it. It's fucking terrible pieces of shit these people are. But I'm trying to look at big picture here when it comes to population size and science and all that. And what I'm saying is, as horrible as the act is, as terrible as it is, and it should never happen, to have 5 people out of 350 million, and say only, I don't know, say, I'm sure at least 20% of them are white, right? At least 20% of 350 million. So let's say 20%, which would be what, 70 million? It's 20% of 350, 70, right? Something like that, 20%. Yeah, 20% times 5 is 100%. 7 times 5 is 35. Yeah, so it seems as though the math adds up. 70 million people, minimum. 70 million people, and you got 5 fucking racists that are willing to kill people. Is that really worth telling the entire country that white supremacy is a major issue and we need to stop white people? Think about that shit, dude. You got 5 people out of potentially 70 million plus, maybe even 100 million, maybe even more than that. We'll say 70. We'll lowball the fuck out of this. We know that more than 20% of the population in America is white. We know that. But let's say it's only 25 or 20%, right? If only 20% of the entire American population is white, and 5 of them fucks are racist, murderers, look, kill them bitches. Kill them 5 fucking people, and I would do it in a slow, painful death. I really would. I know that that's not humane to say. I know that you should give them the chair, shoot them in the head, or whatever. I would do the most agonizing, slow, painful, horrible death to those 5 pieces of shit there is. I would. That's me. And to be honest with you, if you look at anything else I do, I'm Mr. Positive for the most part. I really am. I'm a very positive person in life, but I have zero sympathy for people who fuck with kids and people who just murder, rapes, just fuck people over. I have zero sympathy for people who know better and fuck people over. It's different if you have a mental illness and you legitimately don't know better. If you legitimately don't know better and you don't mean to do these things, I feel a little more sympathetic for you. But if you're just a piece of fucking shit that had a bad upbringing, bad parenting, bad childhood, whatever, and you feel like the only fair thing to do is to kill innocent people, A, fuck you. B, you're a piece of shit. And C, zero sympathy. Fuck you for a long period of time. And then death. You don't deserve anything good. You really don't. If you're that type of person. If you know better and you're still going out of your way to do horrible things to innocent people, you deserve the worst of all things. It's like Dave Chappelle said in one of those skits in Chappelle's show, I hope all the bad things in life happen to you and you alone. It's fucked up, man. But I fully believe that within 10 to 20 years, people will get on, the majority of people will feel the way I feel right now. And you'll say, it doesn't matter what nation you're from. Like right now, if you're from America, you really hardcore, you'll defend America. You'll say America's the best country. You'll easily be a nationalist with zero issues. You'll easily say, yeah, America's the best country. It's the greatest country in the world. I'd much rather live here than anywhere. You would gladly say that, and nobody would care. Nobody would be pissed at you. Nobody would want to kill you for saying that. But in 20 years, maybe it'll take longer. I don't know. I really don't see it taking longer than 10 to 20 years. I really don't. I think in 10 to 20 years, everyone will be on the page that I'm at currently, where I think wholeheartedly, we're all humans. Who gives a fuck what country you're from, what religion you are, what nationality you are, what color you are? None of it matters. You're a human fucking being. White, black, Asian, doesn't matter. Pick a fucking color. When we understand that as a whole, when the entire world grasps that, and with the internet they will, eventually we'll move past this whole race shit. We'll move past America talking shit about Russia, or Russia talking shit about China, or China talking shit about the... We'll move past that, because none of that will matter. We'll eventually see that as a globally connected world, we're a giant town. We're a giant village. We're a giant city. Nobody that lives in... You can get 100 people in one town that all live in that town. Those 100 people that live in that town, none of them are taking sides on what part of town they're from. Nobody's saying, oh, I represent Uptown, dog. Like that shit's in the movies. That ain't real. Nobody represents a part of town. You represent your village. And when we all catch up to this theory, to this idea, to this fact... that we are all humans. This world is our giant village. We are globally connected. You can literally talk to anybody in China, North Korea, India, maybe not North Korea because, they got strict internet laws and shit. But the point is, eventually, the whole world will be on the same page. The whole world will accept that race doesn't matter, nations doesn't matter, religion doesn't matter. What are you like as a human effing being? And we are all one globe. Eventually, you're going to see one world currency and one world government. And it's going to happen, I honestly believe, within the next 10 to 20 years. One world government, it might even be sooner than that, to be honest with you. The way everything moves up so quick, everything's so fast now. It could honestly be even before then. I'm giving it 10 to 20 years. I think by 2030 to 2040, the entire world will have one currency and one nation. It'll basically be one giant nation. It'll be one government. I don't want to say nation. Maybe we're called nation. Maybe each nation, it becomes like a state. Like every state in America, all 50 states in America are still part of the federal country of the United States of America. So if there's a federal law, all 50 states have to follow it. I think the same is going to go for the world. There will be a worldwide law. There will be certain worldwide laws, and every country has to abide by it. But then there's also going to be other countries. There's going to be certain countries that they can do their own, quote-unquote, small government type of living. And you're going to see this, I promise. It's going to happen. And when that happens, there's going to be two things that happen. One good and one bad. The one good thing that's going to happen out of this is everyone will finally be able to get over the stupidity of racism, nationalism, religionism. They're going to be able to get past all that bullshit that doesn't matter. We're all human beings. We all have life. We all have human God-given rights. We all are the way we are. And we don't need to limit it to, well, if you're in Massachusetts, you're like this. If you're in California, you're like this. If you're in Florida, you should be like this. None of that shit will matter. But here's the bad part that's going to happen. When there's a one world government and a one world currency, that means whatever the fuck they say, the entire world has to do it. And when the one world has when there's one currency, that means if you're fucked, if they cut you off, if you do anything shitty to piss off the world will end your food supply, your shelter, your income. And if we want to get biblical, that's the end times. That's the end, baby. That is when things get really fucking real. When the one world government and the one world currency, you're going to see some dramatic, weird shit happening, and it's going to be unlike anything that the world's ever seen. So you ain't going to be able to prepare for this. You're not going to be able to think like, oh, well, what did they do back in so-and-so when this happened? You're not going to have that. Everything that's going to be happening is going to be brand new. It's going to be on the fly, and you're just going to have to think. So I highly recommend stepping your fucking game up when it comes to your mentality and your mindset and your intelligence, because when this shit happens, you're not going to have a fucking blueprint. You're not going to have a notebook full of notes that's going to say, hey, well, when this happens, do this. Well, when that happens, do that. It's not going to happen. Everything's going to be brand new. No one in the world is going to know what this feels like, because nobody's going to ever have experienced this ever. So you're just going to have to adapt and go on the fly. So I hope you're good at adapting. I hope you're good at acknowledging society and people and governments and the world and connection with each other. I hope you're good at spotting all this and recognizing what's good and what's not, and you know what to look for and you know how to prepare, because the shit's going to come out of nowhere. Nobody's going to have an answer for it, and you're just going to have to react. So I hope you're good when it comes to that. But listen, guys, I got to get going. I just wanted to make that small point about this, because when it comes to religion and race and all that, it's so minuscule and stupid and just bullshit. But right now, society makes it a big deal, and eventually it won't be. Eventually, society's going to catch up, and they're going to say, you know what, race really doesn't matter. People are people. We need to stick up for humans. We need to protect humans. We need to protect this one world government, this one world nation, this one world currency. We're going to need to protect the world, not the race, not the religion, not the, society, not the group. We're going to have to protect everybody equally, like humans, like we are supposed to. That's when shit's going to get real. And I guarantee you it's going to happen. Man, I feel like it's going to be within the next 10 to 20 years. Maybe sooner, maybe longer, I don't know. But I just feel like 2030 to 2040, it's going to be some rough shit happening. And maybe even sooner than that, because rough shit's already starting to happen. But get prepared. Be ready for this. Step your game up. Learn. And just be as prepared as physically possible, because you're not going to know how to. I mean, the world has never seen anything like it, and we don't have a blueprint to prepare with. All you can do is adapt to change and hope that you're doing it the best you can. And I highly encourage it, people. I love you guys so much. I got to get going, but if you want to get a hold of me on Instagram, it's Really Rich Podcast. On Twitter, it's Really Rich Adam. LinkedIn, it's Adam Rich. You can leave me a voice message on the Anchor app and give me a phone call. I'll gladly like to write you back or text you back or call you back or anything. Talk about it in the next show. I'd love to do all that. But I'm sorry to rush off so quick. I really have to get going. I love you guys so much, and I thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this, and I can't wait to do it soon, all right? I love you guys. Peace! I'm out of here.